The only objective is survival, barked the Zari. The drill instructor's dark violet skin shimmered under the sterile overhead lights. No external aid, no weapons beyond the standard issue survival pack, and above all, no retrieval until the exercise concludes. The recruits stood rigid, expressions shifting from anxious glances to outright dread. They represented every species in the Galactic Coalition, some encased in bioarmored shells, others draped in thick pelts or layered in luminous skin. Each had been chosen for their race's distinct ability to withstand harsh conditions. And then there was the human. Sergeant Cole casually adjusted the straps of his gear and let out a bored yawn. He'd read the file on this so-called ultimate survival exam, a challenge supposedly crafted to push beings to the brink of their physical and mental endurance. Each participant would be dropped on a hostile, remote planet, left alone to survive. The last remaining contender, if any, would be crowned the victor. The drill instructor cast Cole a look that was somewhere between doubt and intrigue. "Are you fully aware of the seriousness of this assignment?" Cole gave a lazy shrug. "Yeah. Don't get eaten. Don't die. Just another Tuesday." A few of the recruits exchanged startled glances. Many had spent years preparing for this, training for an environment so unforgiving that a single misstep could be fatal. Cole, in contrast, looked like he had wandered into the wrong room. The transport ship rumbled violently as it pierced through the turbulent atmosphere of VX-99, the Coalition's deadliest testing zone. The skies were ravaged by tempests, acidic rainfall scorched the ground, and the gravity was double what most species could tolerate. It was officially labeled a death world, even by Coalition classifications. Only the most resilient forms of life could endure it. One after another, recruits were launched from the vessel in drop pods, their vitals tracked instantly by orbital surveillance systems. Cole's pod slammed into the surface. The impact would have pulverized most beings, but he merely stretched, popped open the emergency hatch, and climbed out, greeted by the stench of sulfur and something that smelled vaguely like burnt rubber. His boots sank into the steaming, thick mud as he took stock of his environment. A jungle sprawled before him, trees twisted and malformed, their leaves releasing poisonous vapors. The sky was a chaotic blend of storm clouds, with streaks of green lightning tearing across the heavens. Cole rolled his shoulders. "All right," he muttered. "Let's see what's on the menu." Most species in the Coalition knew better than to eat anything from VX-99. Even the native wildlife was known to liquefy anything foolish enough to take a bite. But Cole was different. He dug into his survival kit, pulling out a basic water filter and a crude utility blade. That's all he needed. Within minutes, he had scavenged a few oddly twitching mushrooms and carved a slab from a creature that had very recently tried to make a meal out of him. Meanwhile, high above in orbit, the Zari drill instructor observed the mission feeds. "Status update," he ordered. A young officer scanned the monitors. Several participants are in critical condition. The Korshak warrior fell into a corrosive bog. The Ra are struggling with the gravity. The Sith kin ran into an apex predator and, well, they've been eliminated from the exercise. The drill instructor sighed. "And the human?" The officer hesitated. "He's cooking, sir." "Cooking?" "Yes, sir. He appears to have made a fire and is roasting a native organism. He's also fashioned a hammock." The drill instructor frowned. "And the environmental hazards?" "Gravitational force? No noticeable effect." The drill instructor leaned closer. "And predators?" "That's the other thing, sir. He killed one. He's wearing its hide as a poncho." The command center fell silent. Back on the planet's surface, Cole finished his meal and relaxed in his hammock. From the shadows of the jungle, something enormous watched him, its glowing eyes narrowing. A hulking beast, easily 4 meters tall, crept into view. Multiple limbs lined with razor-like spines, its enormous jaw dripping with glowing venom. "Hey there, big guy," Cole called. The creature charged. Cole sidestepped, letting it slam headfirst into a tree. The impact cracked the trunk and sent branches raining down. Cole grabbed one of the thick limbs and swung it like a bat, smacking the predator in the skull. It blinked. He swung again. With a grunt, the beast collapsed. Cole looked at the unconscious monster for a beat, then shrugged. "Could use another blanket," he muttered, dragging the creature toward the fire. Back in orbit, the drill instructor's look had shifted from cautious interest to outright disbelief. How much longer until extraction? Standard duration is 7 days, sir. The drill instructor rubbed his temples. At this rate, he's going to turn this hellscape into a vacation resort by the weekend. As the trial dragged on, the other recruits were barely hanging on, some desperately signaling for emergency evacuation. Cole, on the other hand, was doing what humans do best, adapting, thriving, and making himself right at home in the deadliest corner of the galaxy. The Galari drill master had seen countless species face this gauntlet. He had witnessed heroes rise and legends fall. But he had never seen anything like this. "Send a message to Coalition Command," he said. "Final message, sir?" "Indeed. Inform them. We'll need a new classification system." By the 4th day of the survival test, the jungle had grown unnaturally still. Cole sat by his fire, idly sharpening a spear carved from bone, chewing on a strip of roasted meat. There was no longer a need to inspect his traps. Nothing dared approach his camp anymore. The creatures that once circled the perimeter, cautiously testing his defenses, had either become his dinner or learned to steer clear. The only motion came from the dancing flames and the occasional flicker of green lightning across the darkened sky. Cole exhaled, eyes scanning his surroundings. Something felt off. Then he realized what it was. Too quiet. The distant howls, the rustling in the brush, gone. Setting down the spear, he stood and stretched. "Well," he muttered, "that's new." On the other side of the planet, the final 2 remaining recruits, Gra and Scabby, noticed the same eerie calm. Gra, a hulking brute evolved for life in swampy worlds, was shivering in a damp cave, his thick hide barely retaining enough moisture in the hostile environment. Clutching his survival knife, he knew his time was almost up. Scabby, a cold-blooded reptilian species, had buried himself beneath layers of leaves, trying to preserve his body heat. His breathing was shallow, and his emergency beacon blinked faintly beside him. He had all but surrendered. Meanwhile, Cole was not just surviving, he was thriving. He walked to the boundary of his camp, scanning the dense vegetation. Kneeling, he pressed his hand to the soil. A steady tremor pulsed through the ground. Something enormous was on its way. A slow grin crept across Cole's face. "Finally," he whispered. Up in orbit, the Zari drill master noticed it too. "What's causing that seismic activity?" he asked, voice taut. The monitoring officer moved quickly, toggling through thermal imaging and motion scans. When the display finished loading, silence swept the command center. "Sir, we have a situation." The drill master stared at the screen. A gargantuan life form was advancing toward Cole's position. This wasn't just another predator. It was the predator, the apex hunter of VX-99. It towered over 15 meters tall. A colossal beast plated in natural armor with tusks like warped steel and 8 limbs designed for one thing, obliteration. As it moved, the terrain itself cracked beneath its weight. "This is far outside testing protocol," the drill master growled. "If it reaches him..." "Sir," the officer cut in, his voice trembling. "The human, he's walking toward it." "What?" The camera zoomed in. There was no mistake. Cole wasn't fleeing. He wasn't hiding. He was advancing, spear in hand, body relaxed, almost eager. The apex predator spotted him. Its massive, glowing eyes locked onto the human. Its armored head dipped low in preparation to charge. Thunder rolled overhead, casting flickers of eerie light across the battlefield. Cole halted a few meters away and rolled his shoulders. "All right, big guy," he said under his breath. "Show me what you've got." The creature roared, the sound shaking the very trees around them. Cole's grin widened. The drill master exhaled. "This is madness." An officer swallowed hard. "Sir, maybe he's the real apex predator here." The roar echoed through the canopy, louder and deeper than anything Cole had encountered. Birds, or the closest thing to them, scattered into the storm-choked sky. Smaller creatures darted underground, fleeing instinctively from the sound of pure dominance. Cole wiped his hands on the predator hide pants he had crafted, adjusting the bone spear on his back. "That's the sound of something that thinks it owns this place?" he muttered. On the far side of the planet, Gra and Scabby heard it too. Gra, trembling in his cave, activated his emergency beacon. His kind were known for resilience, but this was beyond even his threshold. Scabby, barely conscious and dangerously hypothermic, clutched the last piece of his survival gear, praying for extraction before whatever made that noise found him. In orbit, the drill master leaned in. "Pull up all satellite visuals. I want eyes on the source." The officer obeyed, switching feeds and running thermal scans. When the image appeared, the room fell into a tense silence. Something massive was bulldozing through the jungle, uprooting trees like blades of grass. Its form was unlike anything in the Coalition's biological archives: thick, armored carapace, ridges pulsing with a strange organic glow. Its head resembled a warhammer, tusks long and jagged, worn down from countless battles. 8 legs, each ending in razor-sharp claws, pounded the earth. It was the apex of VX-99, and it had set its sights on Cole. "This isn't part of any sanctioned test," the drill master muttered. "If that thing engages—" "Sir," the officer interrupted again, unsure. "The human, he's already moving toward it." The screen confirmed it. Cole wasn't signaling for a vac. He wasn't looking for cover. He was striding straight into the clearing. The behemoth turned, its glowing eyes narrowing. It exhaled a blast of hot air that flattened the jungle around them. Cole cracked his neck and flexed his fingers. "So, you're the one everyone's scared of." The creature let out another thunderous roar. Cole grinned. "Let's change that." With a deafening crash, the monster charged. Trees splintered, dirt flew, and the battlefield was set. The creature's tusks glistened in the faint light, aimed directly at Cole. He made his move. Up in orbit, Coalition officers observing the scene had expected Cole to flee, to duck aside, maybe attempt some evasive tactic. He did none of that. Instead, he charged. At the final heartbeat before impact, Cole dropped into a controlled slide beneath the massive beast, spear in hand. As he passed under its enormous belly, he drove the weapon upward with every ounce of power he had. The bone spear pierced the vulnerable flesh nestled between armored segments, and the creature let out a thunderous cry of agony. Cole rolled out just as one of the beast's clawed limbs slammed into the ground beside him, missing him by inches. The behemoth turned with fury, its head whipping around to track him. Cole stood up, smearing dark blood from his arm with a grin. "Not bad," he muttered, "but you're gonna have to try harder." In the command center, the drill master gripped the edge of the console, stunned. How is he still breathing? The officer monitoring the live feed shook his head, bewildered. "I can't explain it, sir. The gravity alone should have slowed him down. The air density should be impairing his lungs. But he's treating this like it's just another hunt." The drill master stared, dumbfounded, as Cole pulled a second spear from across his back. The creature bellowed again, though this time, the sound carried a note of hesitation. It had begun to sense something unfamiliar. This prey wasn't running. Cole spun the spear with ease. "Round 2?" he challenged. The monster began circling, massive frame shifting with caution, its weight pressing deep into the earth. It had never encountered a target that fought back, let alone one that advanced. Cole squared up, tightening his grip, heart thundering, not from fear, but exhilaration. It had been far too long since he'd faced something that truly tested him. The beast lunged, roaring. Cole sidestepped at the last second, sweeping his spear in a deadly arc. The blade slipped through an exposed gap in the monster's plated shoulder. It shrieked in fury, tusks slashing through the air where he'd just been. Cole ducked, already repositioning. In the command center, one officer whispered wide-eyed, "He's not reacting. He's anticipating." The drill master didn't reply. He simply nodded. "He's learning." Cole leapt upward, grabbing a ridge along the creature's armored back. With brute strength, he hoisted himself up as it thrashed, ramming itself against trees in an effort to shake him loose. Still, he clung on, fingers locked into its jagged plates. And then, in a moment that chilled every officer watching from orbit, he laughed. "Come on," Cole shouted. "That all you got?" The behemoth bellowed, rearing violently. But Cole had already yanked his spear free and plunged it again, this time into the base of its thick neck. The earth trembled as the creature stumbled. Cole vaulted off just before it collapsed, the impact reverberating across the jungle floor. It let out a final breath, and then lay still. Cole approached slowly, nudged the giant body with his boot. No response. He placed his hands on his hips and exhaled. "Guess I'm gonna need a bigger hammock." Silence fell across the command deck. The drill master finally slumped into his chair, rubbing his temples. "Deploy retrieval teams," he said flatly. "But sir," an officer began. The drill master just pointed to the screen. Cole was already carving thick cuts of meat from the fallen beast. "We need to get him off that planet," the drill master muttered, "before he eats everything." By morning, the extraction vessel descended near Cole's camp, its engines stirring up clouds of dust. The hatch hissed open, and a squad of armored soldiers stepped out, weapons lowered but clearly alert. Cole sat by his fire, casually chewing a strip of roasted meat. "About time," he called out, tossing another log onto the flames. The squad hesitated before their leader stepped forward. "Sergeant Cole," he announced, "your test is complete. We're here to escort you back." Cole stood, stretching lazily. He looked around his camp one last time. "Shame," he said. "I was just starting to enjoy myself." The squad exchanged uncertain glances. Cole sighed. "All right, let's head out. But you guys owe me a steak dinner when we get back." The drill master was already waiting as Cole stepped onto the command deck. "You," he said, pointing, "are not normal." Cole smirked. "My old drill sergeant used to say the same thing." The drill master inhaled deeply. "This test was engineered to push every species in the coalition to their breaking point. You turned it into a weekend retreat." Cole shrugged. "You dropped me in the wild with a knife and told me to survive. Where I'm from, we call that camping." The drill master blinked, then turned to his officers. "Send a message to the council. We need to reevaluate the human classification." One officer hesitated. "Sir, how should we classify them?" The drill master glanced back at Cole, who was now leaning against the wall, wearing a satisfied grin like someone returning from a vacation. "Unknown," he murmured. "But whatever they are, I just hope we're on their side."